Today's a special one because we get to introduce you to a very special guest and someone who truly embodies everything that we talk about on this podcast. He's become very well known in the Unbreakable community. You may know him as the Menace, but he is hands down one of the most disciplined and consistent humans I've ever met, and that shows in the results that he's gotten over the last couple years. He has had a next level transformation. And when I say that, I mean next level, like nothing I've ever seen. He has become an entirely new man inside and out, and we're talking about losing over 100 pounds, getting all the way down to 7% body fat at 61 years old, gaining back full mobility, range of motion, functionality, building serious strength and muscle, nearly 2 years sober, completely rebuilding his health, confidence, and his mindset from the inside out, and doing it all while showing up as a better man, father, friend, and leader in every area of his life. So this isn't just a physical transformation, it's a full life transformation. And he's been a longtime client of mine and has also become a really good friend and inspiration in my life. His work ethic, drive, and outlook on life inspires me every day. And today we're diving into the real story behind the highlight reel, the ups and downs, the lessons and habits that have led him to where he is today. So Sean, welcome to the show. We are so pumped for you to be on and for people to hear your story.
Thanks for having me. I'm glad to be here.
What a great introduction. And from everything I hear, everyone that talks about you, Sean, it's well deserved and like spot on. So I'm super excited as well to get to know more about you today.
So for starters, let's take it all the way back. Where were you mentally, physically, emotionally when you first started this journey?
Well, I've thought about that question all week, and it's kind of hard to go back there, really. I mean, it hasn't been that many years, but just it's been a long time since I walked in those shoes. But when I came to you, I knew I had been trying to start myself probably 4 months before I contacted you, and about as far as I got was just getting some steps in and walking my dog and stuff like that. The trail I walk on has a lot of older people walking their dogs, and I never really see any change, for the better. I did manage to lose like 20 pounds in 4 months, which was nothing compared to when I started with you, because I think we doubled that in the first 4 months, but I probably around 55, I joined another program. It had no one-on-one coaching. It was like they gave you the tools, so it was up to you to implement it and do it. And I did it, and I lost 100 pounds on that program. It was completely different, though. I mean, we can maybe hit on that later, but after that, I had tore my rotator cuff on my left side during that, and I thought I was building a really good mindset, and it completely derailed me for a lot of reasons. My doctor, and he did the same thing this time. My doctor, spent a year pumping me full of cortisone, saying, you don't need this and that. And, like a year or more later, he gives me a referral to finally get an MRI. Well, needless to say, during all that, I lost all my gains and almost gained everything back, basically. I lost all my gains. And that was a really hard time, because I was actually, it was depressing, and it almost felt like I'd never get back, to where that program by far, it was pretty hard time, when I first started up. Before working with you, everything revolved around work. And I know that sounds strange, I know a lot of people feel that way, and kind of for the first time in my life, I just kind of caught the attitude that if my job prevents me from being healthy, then I need a new job, or a new career, whatever you have to do. But if I can't be afforded a couple hours a day to do that, then I need to make a change. So yeah, when I came to you, I had very low confidence, kinda, and I knew I needed to make the change, and had been fighting off that depression. And every time I tried to get back going with weights, something came up, something derailed, something. So I never really, I might get like a workout in here, one a week or maybe two the next week, but it just I could never get in the flow, for whatever reason. And I think having a coach and the accountability is what changed that for me.
Yeah, that's a super common theme that we see with a lot of people, and it can be very depressing and tough when you start seeing progress, or like you said, you lose the weight and then something gets in the way. And that's the funny thing about life, is shit always gets in the way. Something always comes in and tries to derail your progress.
Yeah.
And so it can be really tough going through that on-off cycle. Was there a specific moment or like feeling when you realized you can't keep living like this? Like, what was the spark to really go and try to make this stick for real this time?
Well, I think a few things were going on. I was closing in on 60 pretty fast, and when you get this age, like your friends that you kind of grew up with and stuff, I don't really see them a lot. I usually see them at funerals, or occasional kids, with somebody's kids getting married or something like that, But it started becoming more funerals, And then I look around at all the people I grew up with me, and they kind of had the same build I did, the same beer belly gut, and I knew, I always knew I wasn't, that being that overweight was not how I was meant to be or supposed to be, or any of us, I don't think, are meant to be that way, So I had a lot of eye-opening things like that, that really really kind of changed me. And I kind of, before I signed up with you, I'd also kind of started getting away. I used to be like a political news junkie and stuff like that, And about the time I started, trying to do something in March before I started with you, I was sick of it. I was like, this stuff is just designed to make you upset, So I decided I was going to get away from it for 30, 60 days, and then I'll check back in, and sure enough, when I checked back in, it was the same tune, a little different rhythm, but it was just a different subject, but it was all the same thing, and I was like, I haven't watched it since, My wife turns it on. She was more of a local news person, but when I got out of it, then she seemed to get an interest in it for some reason. So I've seen it a couple times, but I don't even hardly watch TV anymore. I really don't have time for it, for one, but it just, nothing really interests me, even like sports. I still like to watch the Cardinals every once in a while and stuff like that. That's something I do, but I don't. It's so different now, because before, when the Arizona Cardinals were going to play, I was going to make sure I watched that game no matter what. Now, I can just look on my phone or my computer the next day and see who won, and I'm happy with it, So
I thought it was interesting in the beginning. You were saying that it's really hard to kind of think back at that time period, even though it was a couple years ago. That's because you've completely changed your identity. You know,
Yeah.
and I think that's so cool, and it's a big challenge. There's a lot going on, and that's what people want to do. But you've successfully done that, and yeah, I imagine it's so hard to think about. Like, I don't even know what I was like back then.
Yeah. That was the first. I think it's the first question on the questionnaire, and I kept thinking about that, and I was like, well, I know I wasn't happy, for sure. And I was looking for help. I knew I needed to make the change. So when I dropped out of that kind of political nonsense, I was still on Twitter, and I kind of just I don't know how to rephrase it, but regrouped my interests and started getting around fitness and trying to kind of get immersed and surrounded by fitness people, and that's where I found Mackenzie, and then it was kind of funny because I was like, man, this girl's a hard hitter, man. She's a little more filtered nowadays, but she was hard hitting back then.
You're not wrong.
But that's actually kind of what I liked. I mean, I was like, she's no nonsense, So, and that's kind of how I got started. And I'd been following Mackenzie's posts, and I knew I just had this, I knew that her system would work, and just eating whole foods, and we kind of cooked a lot at home anyway. And when I think back of it, that's kind of how we were raised. I was raised by a single mother who had 2 boys, and we didn't make it real easy on her most of the time, but she always had food in front of us. Always, she came home every day from work and cooked, cooked us dinner, and made sure we went to school with food in our stomach, and so, but that's how we lived. We just ate whole foods. We didn't eat out a lot. I mean, she got paid every 2 weeks, so she might splurge every once in a while, but she, was a single parent with a single parent income, so.
Yeah, I was the same way growing up, and I don't know, it's definitely more of a generational thing now, and I think it's just so many options available, and you have more 2-parent homes, where both parents are working, and they don't know how to prioritize their time in a lot of ways. And so you're right, when I was growing up, we hardly ever went out to eat. I mean, it was like a super special treat if we went out to eat. And now there's so many people that eat out, 3, 4, 5 times a week, sometimes almost every single day.
Yeah. It was kind of funny. I was thinking back, and, so my mom also shopped for 2 weeks, and she'd get a couple of gallons of milk, and I was a big milk drinker. My brother was a big cereal eater, and I used to get so mad at him, like when we were getting close to the end of that 2 weeks, we're running out of milk, and he's got this empty bowl of sugary milk that's just going to go to waste, so.
Yeah. Well, that was always a joke too back then too. If you had boys in the house, like you always had tons, like gallons and gallons of milk.
Yeah.
And it was always like a joke of how much milk goes through, you go through when you have boys in the house.
Yeah, yeah. I used to slam it. I mean, even sometimes when you came in and thirsty, instead of grabbing water or soda or something, which we didn't have a lot of soda around, but I would chug a glass of milk a lot of times, So, but yeah.
So when you, when we started things, how did you feel in the early days emotionally? Did you feel scared, doubt, excitement? What was going through your mind?
I think probably all of it. I remember being a little stuck in my ways, and kind of, which was pretty old school, so I finally came to this deal that I gotta let her coach. You hired a coach, so let her coach, and so I wanted to try to stop questioning, but one of the things that's been really good is working with somebody younger, because everything changes, nothing stays the same, and I've learned a lot, by working with you, so but I had some doubts, and you know, I know we kind of joked about it when we did that squat transformation thing, you know, and it's kind of amazing to me now, you know, but that's kind of where I think I started videoing my stuff a little more because, you know, I remember feeling like I was getting down there pretty good, you know, and when I look at it now, I was like, man, it was like I was barely bending my knees, you know. So, but yeah, and you know, just some nervousness and stuff like that, you know. It took me a little bit to get used to videoing, and progress pictures were always hard, still kind of are, you know, because you're never satisfied with yourself, you know. And maybe that's a good thing, you know. If you can always find those little things you need to work on, you just keep working on them. So
yeah, I think there's a motto, proud but never satisfied. I feel like that's a good way to put it. Like, yes, you should absolutely be proud of where you are, but I think what makes you so successful is that never being fully satisfied and like always looking to the next level, always looking to grow and evolve. So I think that's super powerful.
yeah.
Yeah, you have that growth mindset. I think it is really easy to kind of just get stuck in your way, especially the older we get. You know, like, this is the way I've done it, this is the way it's supposed to be, or you think it's supposed to be, and so it's hard to get out there and say, okay, I need to change. I need to listen to this person who's telling me, you know, even though I'm paying her, I need to listen to what she's saying,
Yeah.
and follow her, and just, you know, I just got to go for it and just trust that process. That's hard to do, though.
Yeah.
So how did you stay committed during the hard times and when you weren't necessarily feeling motivated, or when you were feeling some of those doubts and fears?
I think some of that goes back to being accountable. When you hire a trainer or a coach, for me, like, you don't want to shop for price, or you need to shop for connection, you know? Like, am I going to be able to work with this person, you know? So having that, I never wanted to like, you know, the accountability, you're like, you don't want to let your teammate down or anything like that. You don't want to let your coach down. So that was one thing that kept me going. And you know, when I began, I was working out in the evenings, which kind of got hard for me for a couple of reasons. You know, when you try to go to the gym and you're beat down by the workday, beat down by stress or whatever, and so in the beginning I had a lot of those days, and then I think after about 6 months I realized I need to get out of my house, you know, and I joined a gym in either, I don't know, it was probably about 6 months after we started. I think I was just kind of I was in a funk and I joined that gym, and that was one thing that really kind of helped me turn the corner, you know. I mean, home is like where you rest, you know, where you relax or whatever. So when I'd start just going straight from the office to the gym, you know, the social interaction helped, you know, because you kind of walk through that door, you drop a lot of stress automatically, you know, you see a couple of people, you know, and you know, so then next thing you know, you're ready to do your thing, you know, and on those bad days, most of the time I walked out of that gym feeling great, you know. The days I didn't want to go, or just even like had ideas of floating around that, you know, I'll just make it up, or I'll do something, but I had a real problem with mobility doing that, you know. It seemed like in the beginning, when something came up, mobility always went, and I hated it at the beginning, and I love it now, but So to me, like that was like the low priority on the workout poll, so I would always adjust that way. So anything that came up, mobility would get tanked. So it wasn't always perfect, but I finally, I don't know if I want to say guilt, but I just didn't feel good about that, I was like, I got to get these in. So I just started doing them, and the more I did them, the more I liked them. Little by little, it took a while, but I wasn't good at it, and that's because I didn't have any mobility, But as I started, getting mobility, and we had quit doing Bulgarian split squats because I was just struggling so bad, and Mackenzie took them out. And then, about 6 months later, I sent her a video, and I was like, "Hey, look at this," and I was like, I think I could do this. I was in the gym, and I was just, I actually saw a lady how she was doing it, and balance was the big thing with me that I was having trouble with at that time. And this lady had the little seat that you would do overhead press in. And she just turned it sideways, and she held onto it, and was doing them off a bench. And I was like, man, that's a pretty good idea, And so I went over and started trying it. So then I videoed it, and I was like, this is probably going to hurt me more than it's going to hurt you, but I might regret sending you this video.
Yep, and created a monster right in that moment.
So, things like that. There was something else. Oh, I did think I did Bulgarians off the Smith press then too. So, and that was just after probably 6 months of doing mobility. That's actually a pretty quick turnaround, in my opinion. Because I was, and I really, when I started doing mobility, I couldn't believe, one, that I couldn't do it, and two, how immobile I had become. It's like if you don't use it, you lose it. So had a great mobility day today, and it was much needed to stretch out some soreness from being off for a while. And never looking back now.
I love that you say that, because I think pretty much every single person goes through the same thought process. No one likes mobility in the beginning, and so many people swear it off because it's boring, and it is challenging. I think the point you said too is like, it's hard and people aren't used to that, and so of course we don't want to do it because it challenges us and it feels uncomfortable. But it's good to hear your perspective too, and how you learn to love it and realize, I think it becomes even more fun when you realize how much it affects your actual training. Like, you get to train better, you get to lift more, you get to see better gains because you train mobility, and you move freely. So it's cool to see that carry over.
Yeah. And so as I kind of went along, to be honest, like once I kind of embraced mobility, and the bad days start going away. I mean, it's part of the transformation. You're just kind of like, I can't wait to get to the gym. So, I would get off at like 3:30 or 4. I would get off at 4. And by 2:30, 3 o'clock, I'm starting to get antsy. I'm like, I'm about out of here. I'm heading to the gym. And totally looking forward to it. So I don't have days anymore where I don't feel like going to the gym. It's just like automatic now. I still have bad days in the gym, or what I would consider days that you're just not at your best. I came back one time from a long weekend, and this was just recent, and it was in our last phase. It was like I totally forgot how to squat, like in 1 week's time. And I went in there, my warm-up was horrible. Everything felt awkward, everything felt heavy. even during the warm up. And I just I never could regain the traction that day on squats, and I still think about it because that's probably the only thing that kept me from hitting my strength goal on squats in the last phase. So now I'll come back and I'll come back with a little attitude next time, and I'll get it. So, but that's one thing that I think has been really cool is that, and you have more of those days like you feel like you don't want to go in the beginning. And if you push through those, pretty soon you get to a point where, gym time is gym time, and that's where you're going to be, I mean, and things still come up for me. I mean, there's times that I have to go to meetings, be at an early meeting in Flagstaff. So, I pack a bag or whatever, and then I just, do what I got to do up there and head back, and I head straight to the gym, change at the gym and work out in the afternoon. Usually if I'm out of town or in Flagstaff, I'm up there pretty much for most of the day, so, and I'm up there super early in the morning. I mean, I'm probably leaving here at 4 in the morning, so by the time I get out of there, it's time to go straight to the gym. So I've kind of learned to adjust better, and I think that just comes with a little time too. And when you make something non-negotiable, you find a way to squeeze it in, even with all the chaos that life brings sometimes.
Oh, I love what you just said. You're like, when you find a priority, when you find something that's that important, you're going to make the time.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people are like, oh, I don't have time to work out, or I don't have time to prep my meals, or whatever it may be. Like you said, if it is top priority, you're going to make the time for that.
Yeah. I feel in a way lucky, I mean, I don't have kids at home. I feel for that because I remember that, and going to games, and I mean, I still go to my granddaughter's plays every sport, so I'm going to her games and stuff like that. But I know it can be hard, for some people, but I don't know. My schedule is tight. I mean, it's crazy. I mean, I get up at 2:40 every morning, shower, do all my personal hygiene stuff, get ready. I go walk 2 miles. The dog's lazy. I outwalked my dog, so he doesn't go anymore. It's too early for him or something. And then I come back, I eat a light meal, and then head to the gym, and then from there I head straight to work, and manage to pick up a few steps here and there during the day, and then when I get home, the evenings are short, it seems like, and we've implemented some strategies for sleep, which really helped me. But to be honest, I don't know if I see it any other way now. I mean, I'm always thinking about my schedule and how I can tweak it, or how I could gain more time, or something like that. But I kind of think I like having that. I mean, that probably also helps me from wandering off, too busy to go, or I got too much going.
So what do you tell someone that is listening to this and they hear you, they're like, man, I want to be like Sean. I want to do that every day, and I'm super busy as well, but I just don't know how to establish those habits, those routines, and that discipline to be able to do that every day. Like, what tips would you give for that person?
Well, I mean, you just got to start. I think that's the main thing, and it'll be a little frustrating, maybe for weeks and maybe for a month, because you're going to have to find out what works and what doesn't. For me, it was a little easier because I had Mackenzie, who would help me through, certain things, I remember one time I thought I was going to take out my morning walk, and right off the bat, she wasn't crazy about it, because I had already been doing it for like a year and a half. And that was actually not too long ago. And I tried it, and everything felt off always, you just, and really for me, like on leg days, there's nothing better to start and get your legs going a little bit. You might have a little soreness or maybe not, but you kind of get them warmed up. I mean, and I get a lot of steps just in the gym, especially on leg days, because I don't really sit around. I feel like if I sit, I don't want to tighten up and all that, so I want to stay loose. So I pick up a lot of steps just by kind of pacing around the gym in between sets. And so I think that's part of it. I had some help for sure, but you just got to keep after it and keep tweaking it, and kind of figure out you're probably going to have to let go of some things too. Really, to be honest. I mean, like for me, there's really no TV. My wife will have it on, but I'm usually got other things going on, that I need to do to get prepared for the next day or something like that. So it's just restructuring your time and kind of restructuring your mindset. You just if it's something you really want, just go after it. I mean, and I wanted it, and so I went after it. But you just I think that's kind of what you just gotta decide, and take a run at it, and know that it's not going to be perfect out of the gate. You're going to have to adjust. You're going to have to tweak some things, and I remember in the beginning a lot of times at first my weekend was clear from workouts, so a lot of times if something crazy came up or I had to go out of town and I couldn't get back, we'd slide everything into Saturday, which was great. So I think that's a good way to do it too. Sometimes things are always going to come up. So I think for me now, it's just like when something comes up, right away my mind goes to how am I going to adjust my schedule? How am I getting to the gym? If I'm on the road, I'm like, what am I packing to take with me? Which is a bunch of core powers and barbell bars and stuff like that, usually in water, because sometimes you just either don't have time to stop and eat, or you don't have great options. I think the last time I ate at a fast food place was Labor Day, right after Mackenzie and I started. We went to Lake Powell, and even then, we had been working together for it was only a few months, I think, when I went up there. But it was hard to eat that fast food then, but yeah, I think you just gotta, decide that you want it and adjust, constantly adjust, and it'll find, like right now I'm pretty settled, with what I'm doing, and the way my schedule is, but there has been some problems here and there, and sometimes you just like I have bad allergies. Sometimes that kind of sets me into a like a weird place mentally, and so I just found a way to fight through that, but and always working on that, but something will always come up, so you just gotta always find a way to work around it.
I feel like a health journey mimics life very well, right? Like there's
Yeah,
always going to be challenges. Even when you get to the place you think, oh, listen, I'm in a sweet spot, something comes at you, and you have to learn how to adapt and
yeah.
change and kind of create a new you and create new routines and habits and just like you said, they just got to keep moving forward.
And it gets easier as you go along. I mean, you'll always have those times, but you learn to adjust quicker and learn to adjust better, and it's not like, oh man, I got to go to this meeting. I mean, it kind of is still that way, because then you come on in the morning, but you're just going to do what you got to do. So, but right away, if I have a meeting out of town in the morning, I already know I'm going to the gym in the afternoon. So I don't like to miss.
We know it.
That's awesome. Sweet words right there. I don't like to miss.
So I'm curious, what was something that was kind of surprising to you about this journey, whether it be fitness, mindset, life? Like, what was something that was unexpected or surprised you about this process?
Well, I think, like, as far as coaching, I only related it to fitness in the beginning, but it's turned out to be so much more, and part of that, like, developing your mindset, and then some of the discussions we've talked about so many things, and so many things that really don't have a lot to do with fitness per se, but sometimes, like my transformation, and I quit drinking, and I'm around people that drink all the time, so that can be hard, at times, but it's I think that was the thing probably that surprised me. Like it wasn't like just a fitness transformation. It was just a life transformation, and so that's probably the biggest surprise. And how much different my mindset is this time from the last time, and I think it shows too that, like, on the last time I didn't have the support I had this time, so that I think that's huge too. Just I know I keep bringing up the accountability, but I think it's so huge to everything I've done. I think another thing that's really surprising is, like, how much my relationship with food has changed just from logging food, which also, to me, again, ties into the accountability, because I know Mackenzie's always spying on what I eat and stuff like that. So,
What? We never look at your stuff.
So you don't want to log garbage, and you can cheat on it, but you're really only cheating yourself, because then you're skewing the data that you guys use to make your decisions, so that's probably one of the biggest surprises. I think too, having quit drinking, was huge for me, but what I think the biggest surprise is like that I've quit a lot of times before, and for years, and then for some reason went back to it, probably just because it's around, or a lot of those times too I lived by myself, so I stayed kind of by myself, or I hang out at church or something like that, so I wasn't around a lot of people, and then you get caught back up with the old friends and the old peer pressures, and but now it just feels so different. I mean, it's only been a couple of years, but it feels like totally removed from me, just and I guess I don't know, I guess it all ties together, but I mean, and I felt that way from the beginning. I mean, that Labor Day I was talking about when I ate the fast food, I was getting pressured to drink a lot on that weekend, and I think I had only quit a week or two before that, and I finally had to just tell them, hey, I'm not going to drink. I'd appreciate it if you quit asking me to, you know. So anyway, that was a surprise. I think too, going back to working with somebody who's younger, it kept everything kind of fresh and live, and I learned a lot of new stuff, and so that's been really kind of neat too. If I would have went back to like the same old way that things always were, I don't know if that interest stays in you, but I like the way the workouts are laid out and everything, just the way we do our phases. Like you don't get to that point where you're feeling like things are mundane, or because we switch it up here and there and try new things.
Yeah, definitely. And I want to go back to what you said about the drinking too, especially when it comes to the peer pressure in general, because I feel like alcohol in general is a very oddly controversial topic when you quit and you're trying to stay consistent with that, and the people in your life don't do that. The same thing applies to even just eating healthy and eating your meal prep, and just even going to the gym and prioritizing that. And so I know you've gotten a lot of pushback in not just the drinking, but in other areas of life. So how do you manage that? Like, how do you stay consistent with yourself? How do you set your boundaries? How do you deal with those type of situations when they come up?
I don't know if I can answer that really. I mean, all those things are kind of non-negotiable. So like just on this last vacation, for instance, I take a lot of protein stuff, so I know I'm covered. It's protein snacks, and since most of the time I do a lot of the cooking, so I do have a hand in, but in that, I don't know. I just, you spend all that time doing meal prep. When I was in the office, they would ask me if I wanted, my boss would ask me, he buys people food and stuff like that. And they'd always ask me, there's always pizza there. There was the diabetes corner, that had all the junk food and candies and crackers and potato chips, and I had to walk past it several times a day, and it just, I just kind of was like, I'm not going to do all this meal prep, go to the gym, and waste it on a few minutes of, I guess you'd call it pleasure, but I mean, I guess at one time it was pleasure, but the gym I work out at was started by two competitive bodybuilders that were very very good, and won a lot. And Clint, who's passed away now, but he told me probably 30 years ago, people today, they don't eat for sustenance anymore. They eat for entertainment. They eat for enjoyment. And for whatever reason, that has always stuck with me. Even when I was overweight, but like, so when I got on this journey and started going back to that gym where there's pictures of them and stuff, and it's just reminds me all the time, So, but yeah, you always have people that they're gonna say, you don't want the food you spent all weekend cooking. You need a piece of this pizza or something. So, but it just gets easier and easier that you just and to be honest, logging food kind of changed that for me too, because and my whole outlook on food is different. I mean, I don't eat for enjoyment at all. I eat to build muscle, really, and that's it. So I'm trying to, and I don't eat probably, I couldn't say I eat 100% clean, but that's what I'm trying to do every day, is trying to put the best stuff, in my body to fuel it for the next day, So, not sure if I got off track there and answered the question,
No, that's great. I think it just sounds like you're very clear on your goals and your vision, and that makes it very easy for you to stay consistent and say no and set boundaries when all this other stuff comes up. And I think that's super important, is being super clear on your why, your vision. And when you're confident and secure in that, nothing can faze you.
yeah. And it just gets stronger as you go.
Mm-hmm.
It gets stronger and it gets easier too, right? Because
Yeah.
you've created this and like, this is who I am. And it's not, you're not in the mindset of, well, I can't have this, or I'm not allowed to have this. It's like, I don't want to have this because my goals are so clear and I know the path to get to those goals. And what you're offering me is not going to get me there. So I'm good.
Yeah. I've had even, my wife, she gets upset, she's like, you got all these supplements, you got all these, you're spending all this time at the gym, and I'm like, well, I could just go back to being overweight and because they were all the things that she complained about before, The problem is when I started doing something about it, she, complained about not having enough time, or whatever. So, but that's it. Now to me, I hate to say it, but this is where I am, and this is where I'm going to remain. So, I mean, I'm going to get better though as I go.
Yes, he's not satisfied.
Yeah. I don't want to be satisfied, I don't think. So.
All right, so you're not satisfied. So like, what in your mindset, like, what are you looking forward to? Like, what are your next goals, or what are you thinking? Oh man, this is what I want to get to next.
Well, I mean, right now I'm actually still working on 2024's goals because they got derailed by my surgery. So I kind of renewed those, and I've hit one, and it was one I didn't expect to come first. So I've got one of the 3 goals from 2024 out of the way on the last phase. And you talk about, like, you have a vision for yourself and what you want to look like and what you want to do, and so that kind of drives me, and I want to hit those other 2 goals this year, so I can set something new, weight now, it's kind of weird because I had got all the way down to 226 pounds, which I hadn't been at that weight since I was in the Army in the 80s, mid 80s. I think I went in the Army at 225 and came out at 226 out of boot camp. And so I got down there, and my doctor had told me about 10 or 15 years prior, he said, I asked him some questions about BMI. He said, you'll never see your BMI again. Just blunt, like, you'll never see it again. Anyway, so once me and Mackenzie got going, and I was getting close to it, I was like, it brought that back up, So you get all these other little wins that are kind of, they're not really in your goal pattern or anything, but there's been a lot of little satisfaction things like that happen. Not sure what's next, I mean, I still just trying to develop this body. I want to see, I'm going to see abs before, at some point, I mean, I can see the outline, but I would like to, I don't know why, but it's just something to aim for, I guess. I would like to see that. And then I think just building muscle is just really cool. Really love that part of it, I mean, in the beginning, we were building muscle and losing weight at the same time, but I lost so much weight, so it was really kind of refreshing. Like November was when I first got to start doing upper bodies again. November of 2024 from after my surgery and recovery. It just feels really good to be back to it. Things just took off.
That's an understatement.
Yeah, it just took off. So, like, I think I posted something in the community a while ago that in the beginning, you got a lot of hard work to do, and some of it, it's frustrating because it's slow. But you get to a point where it's like where it becomes fun because you start seeing changes more regularly. And I remember back when I was losing weight, and you're like, is anything happening? Is anything going to happen? Scale's not moving, I don't know how many discussions me and Mackenzie had about scale.
At least once a week.
So, and now I freak out because if it goes down too much. So.
Yeah.
But it gets a lot funner, when you start getting to certain points. And one thing that I kind of mentioned from the last program is the lowest I got on that program was 245. So when I did my intake with Mackenzie, she was like, well, what weight do you want to get to? And I think I said something like 250 or 260 is where I felt the best. But that program was so different, it was a lot of cardio, a lot of HIIT stuff, and I lost a lot of weight, but I lost a lot of muscle in the process. So when I got to 240, it was like a miserable 240. I don't know how really to say it, but it was like you got there and how are you going to stay here, because you were hungry, and the whole time we've worked together, and I think it's just the way we graduate calories up and down, and your body adapts to it. So, even at, I don't know what we got to, 1,600 or 1,700 calories a day for a while, but I never really felt hungry, So, I think that's kind of important to say, just because getting the right program and the right coach and all that, because you can get the wrong one, and you may still lose weight, but it may not be as sustainable, So going forward, I just want to just kind of see where I end up. Always. Mackenzie knows I always want to push more weight, but I got to be a little more careful now because of injuries and, or previous injuries. So, yeah, it's kind of funny because sometimes like I want to push more weight, and then I get in there and I'm like, damn, this is heavy. What was I thinking, So, I really not sure what to say for where I want to go. I mean, I just want to go, I just want to get there. I don't think the job's ever done, really, and I hope it never does, because I think you can always chase something, physically, mentally, to improve.
Well, it sounds like, other than, getting stronger and losing weight, you've gained so much more valuable things from this journey, and you're having so much fun doing this. I love hearing this.
Yeah, it is. I really love it, and just want to keep doing it, I guess maybe I hope, someday I will be like that old guy in the gym and everybody's going, dang,
Yes, same.
So,
To be fair, people are already saying, dang, you're getting compliments. People are coming up to you all the time being like, what the hell, man? Like, how'd you do it? You're looking amazing.
I had a guy come up, and oddly enough, I knew his wife from another place, but he came up to me and asked me to spot him on a leg press, which I thought was a little weird because I've never ever spotted anybody on a leg press before. So he was trying for a PR, and he was like, "Yeah, I kind of looked around the gym and seemed like you were the guy who could help, you know." So that, you know, things like that feel good, you know.
That is true. I mean, when you're looking for a spot, you do look around, you know, like, okay, who do I know is going to be able to handle this weight?
Yeah. I was wondering if Mackenzie, I had to get a spot on a bench. It's probably the first time I asked for a spot since I've been in that gym. And I was wondering if Mackenzie was going to say something, because he's kind of a shorter guy. But he's 70 years old, and he's a competitive bodybuilder still. And he pushes a ton of weight. I mean, I mean, he's got a lot more weight on stuff, on a lot more than I do, you know. So I always got him to chase around, you know, and there's a few other guys that go in there too, but so it's kind of fun. But you know, asking for that spot that day, I think I finally got to 200 on the bench press, and the bench press is what I tore my rotator cuff on, and when I tore it, I tore it good. I mean, I pretty much trashed almost everything that was in that rotator cuff. So I was a little nervous getting back to it, but I could not believe how well it went, you know. And I've never been a good bench presser. Even when I was younger and in school, you know, everybody was in high school. Everybody was like all about the bench press, and guys walking around wearing their, you know, 250 or 300 pound bench press shirts and all that, you know.
How much bench?
I couldn't bench that well, and of course I did, you know, I mean, at that point I had little to no weight training. So I looked over and nobody was ever on the squat rack, so that's always where I went. So you kind of got left alone over in the squat corner.
So one thing I want to ask, I know it's always hard taking time to zoom out and appreciate your progress. I know you tend to struggle with this too, because you're always trying to push to the next level, but what are you most proud of? Like, just take a moment and zoom out, like inside or out at the gym, whatever it is, like what are you most proud of in your journey so far?
I think I'm most proud of like my mindset or my mental transformation, which is not what I would have expected, you know, because everything was about losing weight in the beginning. But I love where I'm at with that, and I love kind of having those non-negotiables and kind of like, this is who I am now, and it's kind of like, you know, the love it or leave it bumper sticker, you know. So that's I'm really proud of that. I think I handle stress a lot better now, even though sometimes, you know, you can get bound up in it still, and because it just keeps coming and keeps coming. But I think my mental transformation is one of the things I'm most proud of, and just being able to, you know, like make the gym non-negotiable. I know what it's done for me now, you know. I mean, I know that's where that mental transformation came from, and that's where the discipline came from, so I just want to keep building on that. And I think out of everything, that's really what I would want to make stronger as I go along. And, you know, I mean, I want to get stronger along the way, but I think if you get your mental health in order and your non-negotiables in order, then everything else follows. It's kind of a reverse order from when you start, in a way, when you think about it, you know, because the gym is what brings the mental thing, and then the mental is kind of what keeps you going after, you know. So,
I aggressively agree. I've been saying that for a long time. I feel like you have to get into it, like you have to actually experience it to believe it. But I feel like we start in the gym because we want to lose weight or we want that physical change, and then we're like, oh wait, like there's something to this. I feel different, and then you get addicted to that mental feeling, and then in turn the physical stuff comes by default because you're so addicted to that like mental feeling that you're getting.
yeah, I love it. It is addicting all the way around.
Yeah. Well, so to wrap this up, what advice would you give to someone who either feels stuck, lost, or like it's too late, or just someone who was in your shoes a couple years ago? Is there anything that you'd want to say to them?
Well, the first thing I just say, it's never too late. It's never too late. I mean, just like my friend, he's 70 years old, still competing in bodybuilding, and I started when I was 60. And I've failed a lot of times. I failed pretty much in every decade of my life because I've been trying to do this, since in my 30s, and I'd get going, get on. So you just got to stick with it. If you're stuck and you're not doing anything, I think just start moving a little bit, even just, if you do, there's a lady I follow who's like in her 70s, and she said her health was so bad, she started by walking to the mailbox, because she couldn't do much more than that. And then every day she'd go a little bit further, but I think the main thing is just to start. If you need help, get help from a coach or a trainer. I mean, it's changed my life. So the money I've spent, is probably the best money I've ever spent on anything, So I think you just got to start, find somebody who can help you. And really, I mean, if you're in a situation, maybe you can't afford a trainer or coach, surround yourself with like-minded people or fitness people. I mean, you guys put out so much good information for free. I mean, I think that could be a place to start, and it doesn't hurt sometimes to if you're like following somebody you like and they're a coach, call them, get a call in or whatever and see how they can help you, because like I know Mackenzie has a lot of ways she can help people, with whether it's, they're limited financially or whatever, so that's what I would say is you just got to start. You just got to make that decision and do something, and then do it a little bit better the next day.
Ain't that what it's all about? Couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
Well, Sean, seriously, I'm just so fired up from this conversation. Even just talking with you every day, like it always gets me so fired up, and I am so proud of you and just everything you've been able to build. And it's been so incredible to watch your journey unfold, and I'm honored to be by your side through it all. I know we're just getting started. So for anyone listening who's been feeling stuck or doubting themselves or thinking that real change isn't possible, I hope that hearing the story showed you that it can be. And if you're ready to take that next step and you know you need the right guidance, that's exactly why we created our Unbreakable Coaching Program. So if you're ready to finally build the life you want, we'd love to help. But other than that, thanks for tuning in. And Sean, thanks again for sharing your story. We'll catch you guys next week.